Hello and welcome to the Ice Guys, brought to you by the National Hockey Now Network. This is the show that takes you into the world of the National Hockey League. Every game, every day, from a betting perspective. With pro sports handicappers Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith, and various guests from the world of hockey and sports betting. And now, here's your host, Ian Cameron.
Welcome to the Ice Guys, presented by National Hockey Now. Saturday, December 3rd, Ian Cameron and Alex B. Smith ready to break down a massive, as it usually is, Saturday NHL card. And it is a big one and a lot of very good games on the slate as well for this Saturday. We've got 13 games on the NHL slate for a Saturday. And looking forward to breaking down the card as we always do. Sides, totals, player props. The only show on a weekend breaking down every single game for you right here, the Ice Guys, each and every day, 7 days a week. Let's get to it. We will start with the Anaheim Ducks taking on the Minnesota Wild. Minnesota minus 280, home favorites here, 6 the total. This is, by the way, the only afternoon game in the NHL today. Everything else is at night. This is one of those classic early afternoon matinee affairs in Minnesota, something that has become very commonplace for them, either a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon game. Minnesota trying to keep the win streak going. They played some better hockey lately, although, again, the schedule come up a little bit light for them. But the last couple that they've played, they've been able to get the job done. Not a great performance against Arizona last weekend, but a win 4-3. Much better against Edmonton, 5-3 victory the other night against the Oilers. You know, taking advantage of an inconsistent Oilers team that, you know, defensively comes and goes. That's basically the way it's been for them all season. And, of course, same thing for Jack Campbell. Hasn't exactly been a great season from him in between the pipes, and Minnesota ends up lighting him up for 5 goals in that game. Minnesota back to their scoring ways on home ice. This has been a long homestand for the Minnesota Wild, and this is the final game of this homestand, a homestand where they've played 6 games. They've gone 4-2 so far on the homestand, looking to make it 5-2 with a win today against Anaheim, which, you know, all things considered, they should get it. I mean, Anaheim is definitely struggling mightily, as we've talked about. Been a wretched season for them, 6-18 overall, just 2-12 on the road. I mean, just absolutely brutal away from home, the Anaheim Ducks. And it's just been a constant problem for them in terms of defending. The penalty kill is dead last in the NHL. That hasn't helped either. Just a lot of problems right now for this Anaheim Ducks team. Philip Gustafsson is confirmed in net. I got to be honest, he's actually performed a little bit better than my own expectations. The numbers aren't bad. He's 3-4 in his starts, but 2.62 goals against average, 914 save percentage. You know, it'll be his first start in 4 games after suffering that upper body injury. So we'll see how he fares here coming back from that injury. You know what I always say about goalies in this kind of situation? They could be on their game. They also could be a little bit off their game. You know, we talk about out of sync, haven't been in rhythm of starting, you know, like he was. He was starting to get into a nice little rhythm playing in a lot of games, and then he gets the injury, and now he's back for the first time. It could open the door for Anaheim to chip in a few goals. I certainly like Minnesota to find the back of the net, and I certainly like that this total opens 6 in a lot of spots. And at 6, I'm a buyer on the over here in this game with the Ducks and the Wild. Make sure you shop around, see if you can still get 6s. There are still a couple of them that are out there in terms of the 6 with the total in this game. Some books have moved to 6.5, but I still like this game over the total here in this one and only afternoon game on this Saturday slate with Anaheim and Minnesota. Alex, what do you like here, Ducks Wild?
Yeah, I don't know what's with all these 1 o'clock local starts during this homestand. This is the third one. I get for Black Friday. You know, you had the Sunday game, which was also a day where the Vikings were not playing, and now you have a third one in this homestand, which I guess gives Minnesota, you know, it's a good look, because if you're going to bounce back and be a playoff team, and we talk about this often with teams like Pittsburgh, Boston, Philly, New Jersey, Buffalo, who get these 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock local starts all the time. In the second half of the season, if you're a better team, you get kind of shifted around. It's not so much now; it was more in the NBC days, but you'll get shifted around and play these day games. I think that's good, you know, muscle memory sometimes to have some of those early day starts if you're not used to them. And I think you can catch some teams off guard, especially a team like Anaheim where the internal clock's a little bit earlier. So I like the over. I'm going to look for a live number of 5.5. Might have to grab that a little quicker than usual, because we have seen some high scoring history between these two teams, 7-3 to the first period over the last 10. I don't really like that look as much as I do the over for the full game, but I want to try to get a little bit better of a number. So I'm going to wait a couple minutes and see if it drops down to 5.5. Not looking for a plus price. I'm just looking for a 5.5 number. So if I'm laying $1.20 or $1.25, well, that's the same price you'd be laying with a 6 right now. You're just getting a half a goal better, and you wouldn't be pushing right on 6.
Something to factor into to the over, and it's also, I guess, a little piece of the puzzle why I like it. Jonas Brodin might miss again for Minnesota on the blue line, and if you look at the 3 games he's missed this year, they all went over the total, and not nearly as good defensively. This is one of the leaders in blocked shots as well for the Minnesota Wild on the back end, Jonas Brodin. So if he misses again on the blue line for Minnesota, I think that makes them a little bit weaker in their own end, just a little bit. And Anaheim might be able to have a better chance to capitalize on that offensively if that is indeed the case. As far as the props go in this game, it's not a bad game to consider some props, since I do think there's a chance we could see some goals being scored in this game. So from a prop standpoint, I would consider for Anaheim, Derek Grant moved up to the second line with Vetrano and Strome. Definitely worth a look. Henrique on the top line as well, a little undervalued. Sam Steele centering the top line. Boldy, Nick Patin. I always love saying that in the French accent. Nicolas Patin for Minnesota. Looks like they've got him on the second line today. Looks like Dean Evison might move him up to play with Gaudreau and Boldy here in this game today. So this could be a situation where with the increased ice time, the increased minutes, he's able to make more of an offensive impact. And he got 14 minutes of ice time up on that line against Edmonton and got a point. Didn't score, but got a point, was more noticeable. So those are the situations you like to take advantage of, that maybe a guy like Nick Patin, as I like to say, definitely able to find the back of the net possibly with the bump up the lineup for Minnesota here today. All right, next game here as we continue along. The rest of the games taking place this evening, Toronto and Tampa Bay. Playoff rematch. Obviously, these teams played in the first round last year, a hard-fought 7-game series. Even though the Leafs, the narrative was, another flop in the first round, I can't call that one as much of a flop. I mean, they laid it all out there. It was a 7-game series. It was a tight series. Game 7 was a 1-goal game. Heartbreaking, they came up just short. It's a better effort from the Leafs, even though it was another first-round exit. Tampa Bay minus 135, home favorites tonight, 6 the total. I'm going to take Toronto here. I do. I like the way they're playing. Obviously, it doesn't hurt that they're going to be looking to avenge that playoff defeat last year. But more than anything, this is just a Leaf team that is really bought into a nice team defensive style of play, believe it or not. And it took 3 defensemen getting injured for it to happen, with Brody, Muzzin, and of course Riley out. But they have definitely played some of their best stretch of hockey in terms of just playing as a 5-man group in both ends of the ice. I mean, it's been very impressive to watch it. It's been very good to see for the Leafs that Sandin and Liljegren and Hall and Giordano, the big 4 defensemen that are really being asked to play more ice time, play in every situation for them, have been able to take advantage and been able to get the job done. So big time credit to Toronto for stepping up in this situation. On the Tampa side, obviously, they're playing pretty good hockey themselves, returning home from a mini road trip. They are now 14-9 on the season. They've won 7 of their last 9 games. The only losses were to Boston twice, a team that's been absolutely spectacular. So this won't be easy for Toronto. But and Tampa Bay, by the way, not only 7-2 their last 9 games, but a Tampa Bay team that hasn't played all year, this guy, but he looks like he is going to be back and make his season debut. Anthony Cirelli for the Tampa Bay Lightning, known more for his defensive prowess. He can score too, obviously. Very capable at that end of the ice, but it's what he does defensively, and especially at playoff time. You saw how important he was, one of the better defensive forwards that this team has, and I think one of the better defensive forwards in the entire league. Anthony Cirelli, just a big-time difference maker, felt it at playoff time, and he is back from injury here for Tampa Bay. Matt Murray, Andrei Vasilevsky, by the way, your goaltending matchup here in this game. Vasilevsky, not the season that we're accustomed to from him. He's been a little bit shaky, but 2.77 goals against, 908 save percentage. For a lot of goalies, those are really good numbers. For Vasilevsky, they're okay numbers. That's the difference when you see him having a 277 goals against and 908 save percentage. The Leafs, so this is a really good hockey game. Like I said, 7-2 Tampa, their last 9. Let's not sell the Leafs short, though. 10-5 in their last 15 games and only one regulation loss for Toronto in their last 15 games. That's damn impressive. I'll give them credit for that. Last 15 games, the Leafs, they've lost in regulation just once. So even the losses, they've been right there in every game. I just like the price, the nice little playoff situation, playing the Lightning for the first time since that loss. Murray is playing great right now, too. Let's not forget that. He's been very good in every single game, pretty much. He's been back since he came back from the injury. So I like the Leafs here. And playing with a ton of, not only to beat Tampa, but playing for Mitch Marner and his franchise record point streak, which he can get tonight. If he gets to 19-game point streak tonight with a point, that means he will pass Sittler and Olczyk for the and stand alone as the franchise leader in terms of consecutive game point streak. So if your books offer it, certainly maybe a Mitch Marner over 1.5 points to get better value, Mitch Marner to score a goal. And I actually took that the other night, Mitch Marner to score a goal. Not the type of price I normally bet with goal scorer props plus 180, but it obviously made sense to bet it the other night with him looking to tie the point streak. And obviously probably worth that look again tonight, considering he's looking to break the consecutive game point streak in franchise history for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So, find Mitch Marner out there to score a goal. It's probably worth a look. Shop around for the best number. You can get as high as, you can actually get plus 230 at PointsBet, plus 225 at FanDuel. It's kind of surprising you can get him north of plus 200 in this game, considering what's at stake here for Mitch Marner and the chance to become the all-time leader in consecutive game point scoring streak for this Toronto Maple Leafs franchise. So definitely some Marner props worth a sprinkle in this game tonight as well. Alex, what do you think here, Leafs and Lightning?
Yeah, I'm stunned by that too. I'm actually probably going to grab a little piece of that because, like I said, if he doesn't do anything early, and let's say they have a chance for an empty net, just like we saw the other for him to tie it, the record, they'll definitely be looking to give him the puck. It'll pretty much be everybody passing to him at that point. We've seen that kind of happen when guys are looking for a certain milestone. So just that scenario potential alone is worth a 2-to-1 shot. Not to mention just the other, possible 55 minutes of the game. So definitely looking at Marner to get a goal, but also look at this over. Like I said, Vasilevsky for what it's worth, he's shown a little bit of fatigue, a little bit of human, human, just motion to the point where we can bet these overs now.
He's human, remember? Is what you're trying to
Yeah,
say.
exactly. Yeah. And the thing is like, we saw 6.5s and 7s forever with the Leafs and Lightning, and we were always saying, wow, well, can we really trust the 7? We tend to look under, especially with a goalie like Vasilevsky. They still were flyovers. So getting a 6 with these two teams and being the first meeting since the playoffs, that we always talk about that angle. Usually earlier in the year when you have the rapid revenge from a tough series, and then all of a sudden opening night those two teams play together. The league likes to do that for the first couple of nights of the year, but when you have one that goes on and a little bit longer, we're already 2 months into the season, and it's the first time the two teams are playing, there still can be some kind of bad feelings there, especially when you look at Toronto. Obviously, the entire broadcast are going to talk about the last time these two teams played, and Toronto lost Game 7 and another first-round playoff exit. They're sick of hearing that shit in the locker room. They have to be. So I think they're going to come out guns blazing. I'm seeing at one shop, Bet Online, a first period over 1.5 minus $1.28. That's a good price if you can grab that. Otherwise, I'd say wait and grab something live. But I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. So I like the over 6, especially only laying $1.10 or better.
You know what you factor into, and you make sure you're. I pretty much know who Mitch Marner's going to play with tonight. He's probably going to play on the second line again, and it's probably once again like he was the last game, going to be with John Tavares and Nick Robertson. That looks like that's going to be the second line. I think you take Tavares and Robertson to score a goal too, because remember this is a point streak. So if there's an opportunity to, if he sees one of his line mates open, to be able to make a play to them instead of shooting the puck, Mitch will do that. Mitch is always a selfless player. He's, for his whole career, he's been criticized at times for it. You pass the damn puck all the time. You got to shoot every now and then. He's always been criticized for that, just being too much of a playmaker, too unselfish. But in this case here, he needs a point, not necessarily a goal. So look at maybe Tavares and Robertson as goal scorer props. Tavares is north of plus 200 as well. Meanwhile, Nick Robertson, who's on that same line, he's plus 420 at Caesars. And we talk about it. He's been undervalued pretty much the entire time that he's been, on that line playing with Tavares and with Marner as well. So I think looking in that direction as well, a Tavares and Robertson goal prop might be worth a look too, because again, Marner's looking for points more than anything else, whether they're goals, whether they're assists, he'll take it. No question about that. I like that. Alex in the chat here, yeah, you're right. Sometimes you know what you want to say and the words don't come out. That was the case there. Talking
Yeah,
about
just just had a blank moment for a minute there.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. I mean, especially for me when I'm doing a million shows during the course of the season. Yeah, you're going to have moments where you're a little tongue-tied. All right, St. Louis and Pittsburgh next up. Penguins minus 170, home favorites. Total has dropped to 6 here in this game with the Blues and the Penguins in this one. I kind of like the 6 now over because St. Louis is really playing a style of play where they're scoring and they're not defending all that well. And the goaltending's been a little bit shaky. Binnington's come back down to earth a little bit. The last few games have not been great from his perspective. Tristan Jarry in net for Pittsburgh. Once again, the Pittsburgh Penguins, give them credit. Slow start, bad start. First period trailing 2-0 against Vegas, but they were able to basically make up for it and be able to come back and get the 4-3 victory against a very good Golden Knights team. And we kind of talked about it the other day, Alex, that maybe rally around Chris Letang's situation a little bit. They even said it after the win, that in the third period, we kind of said, you know what, let's try to get this game here and try to, come together and show what we can do here and with what's happened here for our teammate, Chris Letang, with the stroke, with him obviously out indefinitely because of this. And they kind of used that as a rallying cry, if you will, and beating a good Vegas team, very solid. So we'll see if they can carry that over. We know the Penguins have been an inconsistent mess this year, up and down. There's been so many teams in the NHL this year that have been in that same boat. I mean, it really is amazing. There's been these one or two teams that have been consistent, like Vegas and Boston, and New Jersey. And then everybody else is a hodgepodge right now in the NHL. There's this huge collective of teams that have just been up and down, up and down. One day they're good, one day they're not. And I think you can say that about both of these teams. So I would honestly, in a game like this, say flip a coin, take the plus 150 and hope for the best. I mean, that's what I would look to do in a game like this. I'm not laying a $170 with an inconsistent team like Pittsburgh. If the roles were reversed, I wouldn't be looking to lay a minus 170 with St. Louis either in this game. But I think in this game with two teams that you don't always know what you're going to get from one game to the next, I think looking toward this game being a potential live dog spot just based on the fact that these two teams, one day they're up, one day they're down. I don't think that's the worst way to go looking at the plus price value. And now with the total down to 6, I do have more interest in the over. Alex, what do you think here, Blues, Penguins?
Yeah, I've been looking at the Penguins the last few games for live overs. Cash a great one the other night with that Vegas Pittsburgh, and looking at this one here, like I said, the number dropping to 6 now at a lot of shops. That's even better. So now we can get a 5.5 a little bit earlier. Don't have to wait for a 6 or wait for a plus price necessarily. Excuse me. But I would definitely, like I said, look to play this in anything would be live, even side. Like you said, 150 is a bit high for two teams that have been, like I said, wildly inconsistent. Like most of the league has been inconsistent this year. So this is a great live spot. If you like a side, I'd say if you like St. Louis, take a plus 150 now. I mean, I get that later. But if you like Pittsburgh, I'd say wait, because the Blues could easily take a 1-0 lead and you get some good value going back to the lead. I think this would be a good back and forth battle, which is why I'm circling the live over. Anything at 5.5. This one I probably will wait for a plus price for, as opposed to Tampa and Toronto.
All right, there we go. Good stuff with that. All right, one of the games of the night, Toronto-Tampa Bay, certainly one of the games of the night, and this is right there with that. Colorado and Boston. How about the Boston Bruins minus 170, home favorites, and the defending Stanley Cup champions? I'm not sure I'd see a game where they'd be plus 150 underdogs. And yet here we are, Colorado, the defending champions, plus 150 dogs, 6 the total. I can't pass this up, Alex. Plus 150 on the defending champs. I'm going to take something. I'm going to bet something on Colorado here. I get it that Boston's undefeated at home. They've been terrific all season at TD Garden. I know that and keeping that streak going matters to this team. They want to keep it going for as long as possible, no question. But at the same point in time, this is plus 150 with the defending Stanley Cup champions. And Boston, by the way, if you look at some of their recent home games, they've been winning, but it's been a little tighter around the collar, if you will, some of these games. The Tampa game, they needed an empty net goal. Up 2-1. They got it late to put that one away and win 3-1. Overtime to beat Carolina at home. They played Chicago and Philly. Those were relatively easy, but those are weaker teams. They played Vancouver when they were struggling. Calgary was a sweat. St. Louis, even at home, was a sweat. They needed empty net goals to put both of those games away. It's just we're just overpricing Boston a little bit. That's not saying Boston can't win. They're playing great. No question. Everybody on this roster. I mean, the big guns are playing awesome. Marchand, Bergeron, Pasternak. I think they're getting incredible performances from Taylor Hall right now, who stepped up his offensive game. Krejci's been a great fit returning from overseas to return to this Boston Bruins team. I mean, there's a lot to like with this team, and they're fully capable of winning this game, especially with their blue line healthy now as well. McAvoy, Lindholm, Grzelcyk, Carlo, Forbort, Clifton. That blue line fully healthy. They've gotten good goaltending, excellent from Allmark, and even Jeremy Swayman in his first start in some time was terrific against Tampa Bay the other night. But definitely, I think when I look at this matchup here, you're getting a very good price with this Colorado Avalanche team. Too good to pass up, in my opinion. So I like the Avs here plus 150 in this game here. More of a value situation. Boston definitely, I think, will have their hands full to keep the winning streak on home ice, the undefeated winning streak to start the season on home ice alive. And what's impressed me for the Avalanche right now and some of their recent wins is that after that shutout loss to Winnipeg, and great bounce back, obviously, against Buffalo, but they got different contributors offensively. It wasn't all McKinnon. You got Comfer stepping up. Logan O'Connor's been good offensively lately for the Avalanche because they are dealing with some injuries. I mean, they've got Evan Rodriguez, who is one of their top six forwards out. Martin Kautz day-to-day. They've got a couple defensemen still banged up, including Byram and Josh Manson, both out. But what I always say about the Colorado Avalanche is if they're going to have some injuries, the blue line is the place you want them for them because they have incredible depth. Really, it's remarkable just the incredible amount of quality depth they have on the blue line. To say that you have no Byram, you have no Manson for the game tonight, you're able to come right back and put in players like McDonald, who's played a lot of NHL action. Eric Johnson's capable of getting more ice time and thriving in that. Same with Girard. And you've still got Makar and Taves. You've got depth to withstand some injuries back there. So definitely, I think when you look at this Colorado team, with the depth they've got on the blue line, with the fact you rarely get them plus 150, I think it's worth the look getting them at this kind of price. I also think this game could be an over because Manson does hurt defensively a little bit just in terms of that physical presence, clear the front of the net, in terms of really being someone that's good positionally in the defensive zone. It could lead to a little bit more of a vulnerable situation in terms of the defensive side of it on the blue line for Colorado. But on the same point in time, Boston's faced some weaker offenses. Colorado's obviously potent offensive ways could threaten in this game. So the over at 6 is a little bit appealing as well for me in this Bruins and Avalanche matchup. Alex, what do you think here? Obviously a dandy on a Saturday night in Beantown, Colorado, Boston.
Yeah, definitely. It was Salvador Dali who said, "Have no fear of perfection. You'll never reach it." Boston's been playing great at home, but this streak's going to come to an end at some point, and what better team to put it away than, like you said, the defending Stanley Cup champions and a Colorado Avalanche team that can hold their own on the road. They're not intimidated by any visiting atmosphere whatsoever. I think this is just way too high of a number for them right now. This is a team that's slowly getting back into the groove. And we said this at the beginning of the year. Colorado's going to have some rough times. They're dealing with some injuries, the Stanley Cup hangover, guys that get banged up and maybe they don't have, off-season surgeries, but they still need time to rest and absorb the moment in the first couple of weeks of the season. I think now's the time we're going to start being able to capitalize on some of these cheaper Colorado prices and start to see them get on a nice little roll. I love them here at plus 150. And Boston's a great team. Not taking anything away from them, but like I said, they're not going to go 41-0 at home this year, and they're going to have some bumps in the road. And I think this will be one of them. Like I said, that Carolina game was kind of rocky. They've had teams push them and test them a little bit, and it's hard to be on your A game every single night in this league. I think Colorado gets one here. I like them at a good plus price.
There we go. Like in Colorado here at a nice plus price. And that's what it's about. If this is down around minus 130 to minus 140 with Boston, probably off the game, we're getting to the point where it's plus 150. This is the defending champions. They're playing pretty good hockey right now themselves. They've got a few more injuries. I think Boston's definitely the healthier team right now. No, that's significant. And Wojo in the chat, Bruins looking ahead to Monday against Vegas. Our guy Jimmy Murphy was with us yesterday for his Friday guest spot. He kind of thinks that could be the case. He said, at least said the media is looking ahead to the Monday game against Vegas, and why not? I mean, obviously, Bruce Cassidy returning to the fold here with the Vegas Golden Knights. First time back in Boston since being fired by the Bruins in the offseason. So, yeah, that's a big game. And like you said, normally you don't look past Colorado, but I don't think they will be. I think this is just more Colorado's too good of a team to be getting plus 150. That's, to me, it's got nothing really to do with look-ahead spots or flat spots or Boston not being ready tonight. Boston not playing, not being focused on this game. It's just about Colorado is a damn good hockey team. Francouz in net does, mild concern because he's kind of been up and down, but, the numbers aren't terrible. 2.7 goals against, 914 save percentage, only 2-4. The win-loss record. But, Georgiev, I think, needs a little break. Hasn't been nearly as sharp the last couple of games when you look at it. He got lit up by the Jets. And then the Sabres, they won that game, but he gave up some goals, and there was that one goal that he probably should have had. So I think it's a good coaching. Sometimes you have to take the temperature of your team as a head coach. And Jared Bednar, I think, is doing that, putting Francouz in for this game tonight. I think he knows Georgiev needs a little blow, needs a little rest to get refreshed.
Yeah, definitely, because this is a 1A, 1B, or at least it was set up to be at the beginning of the year, a 1A, 1B tandem. You don't want to run Georgiev into the ground. Francouz's numbers, I think they've been inconsistent because he's not playing regularly. This is a guy, I think a lot of people were just kind of down on him at the beginning of the year, just seeing, he had a couple rough starts. But, like I said, I think because of the roles have changed and Georgiev really stepped up, took the reins and kind of took over the starting gig, that's kind of affecting him. I don't think it's so much poor play, and that's something you have to really look at now this time of year with backup goalies, and it's something I'll probably be doing a little bit more chart work on and kind of share some of this information. But I'm going to kind of rank some of these goaltenders as what systems they use. I might add that into the daily depth charts just as a reference of, is this a 1A 1B tandem or a 1-2 tandem? So keep an eye out for that. But I think this is more of just, they got to use your B option here, and your B option is not a bad, look with Francouz here. So like I said, take the temperature of the team, and like I said, understand that this is a grind, and find a way to win and beat a good team on the road, and your backup should be able to do that. Come into these kind of spots.
Yeah, definitely. A great game. I can't wait. This is definitely one of the games that I'll be watching. This in Toronto, Tampa. They're the marquee games at the 7 p.m. window tonight. No question about that. All right, San Jose, Ottawa. This one, not so much, unfortunately. Ottawa minus 145, home favorite, 6 the total in this game. San Jose continuing their road trip through Eastern Canada here tonight, taking on the Ottawa Senators. Sharks beating Montreal 4-0 and then falling 3-1. To the Toronto Maple Leafs. Look, for as much as we criticize our guy Aaron Farmer in the Dell, that was one of his better games. I mean, that first period, he's making some big-time saves. Even late in that game, I thought he played well. Unfortunately, Aaron Dell gave up the kind of goal I expect him to give up. Shitty rebound control on the eventual game-winning goal that the Leafs scored, courtesy of Pierre Engvall in that game, and that ended up being the difference. But for Aaron Dell standards, that was a pretty good performance from him the other night against Toronto. But it will be Kokkonen here in net tonight for San Jose, the start of a back-to-back for them. They play once again tomorrow night as well in Buffalo, and a good chance we'll see Aaron Farmer in the Dell in that game because facing his old team, used to be with the Buffalo Sabres. So we'll see Dell tomorrow night. In fact, I think already David Quinn said that was going to be the case. So Kokkonen tonight, Dell tomorrow. Kokkonen, I was shocked he shut out Montreal because before that had been kind of rough for him. And even with that shutout win against the Canadiens, I mean, the numbers are still pretty sketchy on the year. 3-6, 3.43 goals against average, 884 save percentage for him going into this game. Can the Senators take advantage of it, though? Ottawa's not scoring suddenly. It's kind of remarkable that they're struggling a little bit offensively. They did come back, beat the Rangers 3-2, but before that, not exactly a team that was lighting it up. A lot of games where they've scored 2 goals or less of late. We'll see if they can get it rolling here. 10 straight games for the Ottawa Senators have gone under the total. That's definitely worth noting. They have definitely cooled off that notion of being that high-flying fire wagon hockey team that we expected them to be early in the year. So This is one of those games where I'm passing. I think it's tough both ways, side and total. I was kind of interested in the Sharks team total tonight, over 2.5, but not at the price that you're seeing. I mean, you're seeing minus 160 in a lot of spots with that Sharks team total. What I might end up doing is on Bet MGM, instead of over 2.5 minus 160, I might take a small piece of over 3 minus 105 with San Jose team total tonight, get a little better price, and at least even if they score 3 goals, it'll be a push, worst case scenario. So I do think the Sharks could end up hitting that 3-goal mark, a little bit of a tired Ottawa team, catching them on the second of back-to-backs. And factor in the schedule, too, for Ottawa. The schedule makers doing more nonsense with certain teams. You got them on that road trip, San Jose, Vegas, Anaheim, LA, out west. They come home for one game against New York, and then you send them to Madison Square for the rematch against New York, and now they're back home again. So just absolutely insane scheduling and unfair, quite honestly, by the schedule makers. So I wonder if that catches up to Ottawa tonight. We'll have to wait and see. What do you think here, Alex? Sharks Senators.
I think that might have something to do with just Madison Square Garden being booked. I mean, that if any arena you're going to have a tough time just trying to flip things around, it's Madison Square Garden. So I don't think too much. It's not as egregious as what we've seen with some other teams, like Edmonton. That's just absolutely brutal, and even the Arizona thing. But that's an arena issue as well. But these are two teams that are just bad, but for different reasons. Ottawa's just not playing as well as they should be. San Jose is just a bad team. I mean, you have Kaapo Kakkonen, who's been at least disappointing. I'm the one probably more disappointed than anybody by his play. I really thought he was going to take a big step up in this spot, and especially now with Reimer being injured, he just doesn't have it. His form is not good, and that trade is looking better and better for Minnesota, even though they're having their issues with Marc-Andre Fleury and of course Talbot now being gone in Ottawa, ironically enough. But this is a Sharks goaltending unit that you just can't bet on at all. Kakkonen and of course Aaron Dell, who, like I said, more than likely will be going against his old team tomorrow. More than likely will be looking at that spot tomorrow as well. But I like the over here live. And I'm waiting for this one to drop way down because we're, like I said, Ottawa 10 straight unders, but we're seeing a lot of 3-2 finals. So there's opportunity to grab 4.5, maybe even 3.5, and go over with that. And I don't think we're going to get as low as 3.5, but there have been those opportunities in these previous games. You've definitely been able to get well under 5.5 or 4.5 at even a plus price. These are the kind of things you want to start circling if you're a live bettor right now. Looking for these trends of where, yes, they're not doing something at the closing number, but you can definitely find those good adjustments in game. So that's what I'll be doing. I'll be looking for 5.5 at a big plus price, or even a 4.5 here to go over with Sharks and Sens tonight.
All right, good stuff indeed. And as far as the props go, by the way, I forgot to mention this with Colorado, Boston, a couple props. Taylor Hall's the undervalued commodity right now for the Bruins. He's playing well. I'd look at maybe prop involving him to score. Colorado, I'd look at that second line. You could go McKinnon, Rantanen, and Lehkonen on the top line, but the guys that are undervalued getting it done right now are O'Connor and Compher on that second line for the Avalanche. I think that's where the value is with props there. For San Jose, Ottawa, Stützle's starting to heat up for the Senators. I consider a prop there. Pinto is always worth a look. I mean, for the San Jose Sharks, I would stick to the same two I've mentioned for a while now, and that's LeBanc and Barabanov. They're getting chances every night. They're playing in the top 6, and they're not being priced like it. And I think if they score, you're going to get a nice payout with both of them. All right, Vegas, Detroit. We've got Vegas minus 145, road favorites, 6 the total in this game. Vegas off a disappointing third period. A lead slips away. They lose 4-3 to Pittsburgh the other night. They will look to bounce back strong from that performance. The Detroit Red Wings, tough start here for them on their homestand since returning home. Well, it actually started well. They beat Nashville and Arizona, but 2 losses in a row since against Toronto, and then Buffalo in a shootout 5-4 the other night. We'll see if they can bounce back here against the Vegas Golden Knights. To be honest with you, if you actually step back and look at the last 10 games, we think about Vegas, they're still 17-8. Very good record overall. Golden Knights are 4-6 in their last 10 games. So they're actually below 500 here in the short term. Coming back down to earth a little bit are the Vegas Golden Knights. I don't know if I want to go against Vegas in this spot. They're off that loss to Pittsburgh. I'd expect them to come back strong. But at the same time, they're laying, moderate price here, minus 145, minus 150 here on the road against a Detroit team that actually does have a slight rest advantage going into this game, having not played since Wednesday prior to this game here on this Saturday. We will see. And Detroit coming off 2 straight losses. You expect them to want to bounce back here as well. Worth noting, though, in this game in terms of the injury situation for Detroit, they're already without Zadina, Vrana, Soderblom, a lot of guys that were being looked upon to be a difference makers offensively for the Detroit Red Wings this season. And when you look at now Tyler Bertuzzi, who had just recently come back for the Detroit Red Wings, he's now out for at least 6 weeks due to a hand/wrist injury. He'd already missed 13 games earlier this year, came back, didn't really have much of an offensive impact, honestly. 1 goal and 3 assists for him in the 7 games since he's been back, but still will be missed because he's a top 6 contributor for the Red Wings, and he'll be out now for 6 weeks. I definitely lean to the Vegas side, but not exactly the greatest price, minus 145, minus 150. I think if I end up betting this, I'll probably drop it down and look toward regulation more for greater value here on the Golden Knights in this game here. The regulation price, by the way, for Vegas is around plus 115. At least you get a better price with them if you go that route. Definitely lean that way. We'll see who's confirmed in net for the Golden Knights, though, before I go forward with that. I'd prefer Thompson. He hasn't been confirmed yet, and it feels like this could be one of those spots where Bruce Cassidy decides to throw Aiden Hill in there, give Thompson a rest, especially with that big return to Boston on deck on Monday, taking on the Bruins. So I'm waiting on that before I pull the trigger with Vegas. Ville Husso's already been confirmed as the starting goalie for Detroit, and he's actually had a couple stumbles after a terrific, brilliant stretch of brilliance for him in net prior to that. What do you think here, Alex? Vegas, Detroit?
Yeah, this is one I would have to wait and see. I was leaning toward Vegas in regulation too, but like I said, if it's Aiden Hill, I'm just not really that comfortable, and that could be the case here. So this more than likely will be either a pass or a game I'll circle some live bets with.
Yeah, that defensive structure of Vegas, which was so airtight early in the season, hasn't been nearly as good. I mean, the Columbus game, they let the Jackets back into it for as depleted as they are. They give up the 5 goals against the Vancouver Canucks, and they've given up 4 power play goals in the last 3 games, Vegas as well. So, just some mild concerns about this blue line here, not necessarily playing nearly as well. And they've missed Pietrangelo, too. Let's keep in mind that Alex Pietrangelo for the Vegas Golden Knights has been missing the last 2 games due to personal matters. We'll see if he's able to come back tonight for this game, but definitely not a sure thing. So it's something you're going to want to look for in terms of betting this game before puck drop, is keeping an eye on the status of obviously a great defenseman for Vegas, Alex Pietrangelo. As far as the props go for the game tonight, Pius Suter is back to the second line. I think he's probably a little undervalued for Detroit in the goal scorer prop market. For Vegas, it seems to be consistently Will Carrier has suddenly started to score for them, even though he's on the bottom 6. Nick Wa's worth a look. Paul Cotter even has stepped up for them a little bit. Some of their bottom 6 forwards. I think up front, the top 6 starts and ends with Riley Smith, because he has just been lighting it up for the Golden Knights. So that could be a player prop that you consider for this game tonight. All right, next up, we've got Montreal and Edmonton. All-Canadian matchup. The Oilers minus 230, home favorites, 6.5 the total in this game. Montreal, I thought maybe they could be live against Calgary. I was hoping they'd at least get 3 goals, because I did take the team total over as well. But they did get the win 2-1. Hey, it was one of those once every 5 or 6 games where Jake Allen plays an outstanding game, and he played an outstanding game against the Calgary Flames the other night. 40-plus saves after a period of time where he had really scuffled in between the pipes. Certainly did not against Calgary. It was one of the best performances of the season from him, and now we'll see if Montreal, they've won 3 of their last 4, makes that head-scratching shutout at home against San Jose even more inexplicable when you see the way they've played outside of that lately. But good win against Calgary. We'll see if they can keep it going here against Edmonton, returning home off the 2-game road trip through Chicago and Minnesota. They get the split. They beat the Blackhawks 5-4, and then they lose to Edmonton, they lose to Minnesota 5-3 on Thursday night in the back-to-back spot. Edmonton suddenly trending over here in the short term. 4 straight Oilers games have gone over the total. I'm definitely leaning in that direction here tonight. Even with Allen off the great game, how many times have we seen Allen follow up a great game with another, and the Montreal team defensively follow up a great game with another? Not so much. So for that reason, lean over. I got to lean a little bit to Montreal here again. It always seems when they're the bigger priced underdogs, the bigger dog they are, the more alive they are. They seem to get up for these games. They seem to just thrive in these situations where they're playing some of the better teams in the NHL. And it's not like Edmonton is playing at a level of consistency and a level of defense and goaltending right now that as you really rush into late minus 230 with them at this point in time. So, I took Montreal the other night and cashed. I feel like, sprinkle again on Montreal plus 200. That's exactly what I'm going to do here in this game, as well as that team total again with the Montreal Canadiens. And again, because of the fact they're this big underdog, you're getting their team total at a very cheap price. I mean, minus 125. Montreal Canadiens over 2.5. And with the way the Oilers have been giving up goals, they give up 5 to Minnesota, 4 to Chicago, 3 to Florida, 3 to the Rangers, 3 to the Islanders, 5 to New Jersey, 3 to Vegas, 3 to LA. They've been giving up 3+ goals, I think 8 straight coming into tonight. And that's all Montreal needs to get over that team total. It is Skinner in net, Stuart Skinner for Edmonton. Obviously, the guy we trust a little bit more than Jack Campbell right now. Having said that, I still think this is a Montreal Canadiens team capable of hitting the 3-goal mark, and that's all they need. Edmonton's given up 3 in 8 straight games. So I like the Habs and the team total over 2.5 and the money line plus 200 split up half and half for me in this game. Alex, what do you think here? Habs taking on the Oilers.
Yeah, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, it's another one I have circled in my notes for a live over, but you got to be really quick with it because we have, even though these two teams have been trending under in the first period of late, we've seen a history of 4 straight first period over, some big first periods between these two teams for whatever reason. Like I said, some matchups just kind of lend themselves that way. And with Edmonton having shaky goaltending once again, we can kind of look back to some of those old notes last year because we thought Jack Campbell was going to kind of, right the ship as far as, between the pipes is concerned. That hasn't been the case. So now you still got a bit of shaky. Skinner's playing better, but he's not, an all-star necessarily right now. So
he's not shutting teams out. No, of course not. Yeah.
No. So, and like I said, we always talk about how, the more minutes you add on to a younger guy, you wonder where the flat spots could be. And this might be one of them. We talked about the scheduling spot for Edmonton the last couple of weeks. That's been tough. So they are liable to lay an egg against a team that's not as good as Montreal. But I don't know if I'm gonna be back in Montreal on a side for a while after what happened with I'm still a little bitter about Tuesday, the way that they played at home. I know I shouldn't carry that going forward, but I mean this is just it's a half team. I haven't been able to get that much of a read on them anyway. That was the reason why I hadn't bet them so often, at least from a side perspective. And then I took a shot and they just no show it at home. So who knows? This could be a game where Edmonton comes out blazing hot and puts the screws to them, wins 6-1, or the Habs edge out a 3-2 win. I do think we're going to see goals, though.
Yep.
And I think this is one of those games where that number drops from 6.5 to 5.5 and into a plus price range. It's worth taking a shot at the over.
5 straight overs, by the way, with Montreal versus Edmonton. 5-0 to the over in the last 5 head-to-head meetings between the Habs and the Oilers. 4-3, 4-3, 4-3, 7-2, 5-2. So a lot of overs with these teams. And keep in mind, Montreal played in Calgary and in Edmonton back-to-back last March. And I talked about this with the Montreal-Calgary breakdown the other day, and they won in Calgary, and then they followed it up and they won in Edmonton. They swept Alberta last year, and that was post-firing of Dominic Ducharme, the previous head coach of the Montreal Canadiens. This is after St. Louis took over, and that's when Caulfield started to play better, and they started to get, better late in the season, go on a little bit of a run under Marty St. Louis late last year, and they went into Alberta, and they swept the Alberta 2-game road trip. So I wouldn't put it past Montreal to do it again here. In this, especially with Edmonton, again, this travel's catching up to them. It's no wonder, like they're already suspect and shaky and up and down defensively. Harder to play defense when you're just traveling here, there, and everywhere. Game in, game out, day in and day out. They're out in Tampa, Florida, Carolina, back home for 1 or 2 home games, back on the road again to the New York area. and then back home for one game, then back on the road to Chicago and Minnesota this week, and now you're back home again. Do you know how taxing that is mentally, physically? It wears you the fuck down. And I think that could be a negative that faces the Edmonton Oilers here tonight in this game as well, in terms of trusting them as a minus 230 favorite in this game. So definitely a ton of issues right here in terms of Edmonton being trustworthy as a favorite of this magnitude here tonight as they face the Montreal Canadiens. In terms of props, I always say with Montreal, it's worth a look. Kirby Dach on that top line is consistently priced better than his line mates. Josh Anderson started to get it going a little bit for the Canadiens as well. For Edmonton, they've obviously been looking to shake up the lines, and Jay Woodcroft's done that the last few games. Janmark, I would stick with him because he finally scored the other night, playing on that second line, getting the greater opportunity. So a Janmark prop, I think not a bad option there for the Edmonton Oilers tonight in this game. All right, New Jersey and Philadelphia. We've got the Devils minus 220, road favorites, 6.5 the total in this game. The Devils just shocked, if you will, by the Nashville Predators the other night. 4-3 overtime win for Nashville. And give credit to Nashville. Go into the Islanders last night and beat them. And we said they had dominated the Devils and Islanders. We weren't sure that was going to continue. It did continue. The series history where Nashville has owned New Jersey and owned the Islanders, and it continued for them. And give credit to Lankinen, spectacular in net last night for the Nashville Predators in that win against the Islanders. But New Jersey loses to Nashville in overtime. I remember the last time they lost to Toronto, we said after that big long win streak, is this team going to have the focus and that mentality to bounce back, or are they going to be a little bit disheartened and, the long win streak's over? And maybe does that lead to more significant struggles? They jumped right back in the saddle. They dominated Buffalo. I think they outshot them almost double in that game after the Toronto loss, and they beat Buffalo 3-1. It was a very impressive response after a defeat. I'm going to trust the Devils to have that same response here tonight against Philadelphia. Obviously, a team they're better than, and a team they should beat here. We've seen New Jersey respond the right way after a loss, and that's the way I'm going to go here. I'm going to go with the New Jersey in regulation at minus 144 right here at Pinnacle. Moderate price, but I think they're going to be able to bounce back, show that resiliency, get the job done. And for as good as they've been overall this year, they're 10-1 on the road. Absolute road warriors, the New Jersey Devils this year. Terrific play from them away from home. I think that continues, obviously, with the Philadelphia Flyers. And we say this about a lot of the teams that are some of the worst teams in the league. Whenever they win a game, don't necessarily trust them to turn it into a win streak or string multiple wins together. A lot of times that does not happen. And sure enough, after the win against the Islanders, Philadelphia could not keep it going, losing 4-1 the other night against Tampa Bay. The Devils, the Devils had their opportunities, but power play, they had a bunch of chances, could not score in that game. But I think they get a little more of that offense going here tonight in Philly in a bounce back spot here against the Flyers. Carter Hart confirmed in net for the Flyers, as you'd expect, who gave up a horrible goal, by the way, against Tampa the other night. I mean, that you got to hug the post there. You can't have the puck ricochet off the backboards there and beat you on the short side, squeeze between your arm and the goalpost. That can't happen. You got to seal off the post there. He did not do that. A disappointing goal to give up, and really broke the back of Philadelphia in that game against the Lightning the other night. No confirmation in net for the Devils. We know it'll be either. I get a sneaking suspicion we might see Schmid here tonight for the Devils. It's not been confirmed, but the fact it hasn't been confirmed tells me we might see Akira Schmid. And I don't mind backing the Devils with him in net. He's been very good, in his last few starts in net for them. So I'm on Devils in regulation here in this one. Alex, how about you? New Jersey, Philly.
I love this first period over. You can get it as cheap as $1.25 right now at Bet Online. Philly, they should have cashed in the last game against Tampa. Like you said, Hart was not in good form, gave up some soft goals, and Tampa had a ton of looks in that first period. So we really should be talking about a 7-game streak for Philly. But 7-4 the last 11 of these two teams going the first period over. And Philly, New Jersey, I should say, they know they have to start off a lot better. I was really bummed out. I had Devils first period puck line. They ended up giving up 2 goals, but then coming back quickly in the second to not only tie the game, but then take the lead. I think we're going to see more of that second period pace against Nashville here in the first period. So I'm going first period over 1.5.
I agree with that. They've definitely still been more of a first period over team, Philadelphia, even though it fell short the last game. Alex looking at Devils Flyers over 1.5 first period here tonight in this one. The prop market, as I'm pretty much repetitive when it comes to the Devils, but as much as, Heishier and Bratt, Hughes can be offensive difference makers for this team, I'm always looking more toward players along the lines of Sharon Govich, even Alexander Holtz, who stepped up and found the back of the net in some recent games for the Devils. More along those lines. Wood, McLeod, Zetterlund, the fourth line's dangerous. I'm always more looking at props involving some of those depth forwards because this is one of the rare teams in the NHL. They're just as possible to have scoring from their third and their fourth line as they are their top two lines. So something to keep in mind definitely when it comes to betting props involving the New Jersey Devils. All right, next up we've got the Chicago. We stay in the East Coast here, Chicago and New York. We've got the Rangers minus 260 home favorites. The total 6 pretty much across the board in this one. I mean, this is a game, there's a lot of games, and there's usually at least, even for high volume Ian, there's usually at least one game that I just totally stay away from. I have no strong feel for, and this is that game. I mean, the New York Rangers last night losing in overtime 3-2 to Ottawa after having a lead in the third period. Very unsettling that they couldn't bring that game home. I'm not ready to lay 260 with this team at the moment, especially when Chicago's got a rest edge, but Chicago's miserable right now. That's the problem with taking the Blackhawks even as a plus 230 underdog. So it became a pretty easy game to say, you know what, pass and move on to the next one. Certainly one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't situations. Not laying the price with the Rangers. Not interested, though, in Chicago either. Alex, what do you think here, Blackhawks, Rangers?
I want to get confirmation from Chicago. I'm hoping it's Peter Mrazek. And if it is, I'm taking a shot here with them plus 230 to get off the streak tonight. This is a series where we've seen a lot of tight battles, and the road team has actually won 9 of the last 13 meetings. Rangers are in really bad shape. That was just another tough loss last night. They're going to be running more than likely Yaroslav Halak in net, who has been pretty much an auto fade. I mean, he's right now in my metrics definitely one of the 5 worst goalies in the league right now. So he's definitely a guy you can't back laying 260 even at home with how bad Chicago's played. And like we said about Boston, streaks can't last forever. Well, the Hawks are not going to just lose out the rest of the season. I wouldn't mind seeing that. Obviously, a bunch of us fans want the first pick, but they're going to win some games. I think this might actually be one of those games they catch the Rangers stumbling early, keep it kind of close, and find a way to win as a huge dog. I just want to get confirmation that it's Mrazek instead of Soderblom. If it's Soderblom, stay away from this game. But if it's Mrazek, I think the Hawks might get 2 points tonight.
All right. You've got more faith in Mrazek than I do. But I will say this, you're getting plus 230. And like I say, in a game like this where I have, I don't, my confidence on the Rangers right now is very low. And obviously they're laying a massive price, but I don't fault that. Plus 230. Chicago's as bad as things are right now, and they are bad. I mean, when they get hemmed in the defensive zone, it's ugly. I mean, Edmonton just had them just stapled to their own end in multiple shifts the other night in that game against the Blackhawks, and they just could not get out of their own zone, and that's the problem. You can forecheck the fuck out of the Blackhawk blue line right now and have a ton of success doing so. So definitely that is something that would concern you about the Blackhawks tonight. But again, the Rangers kind of been chasing the game, kind of had issues winning faceoffs. So maybe Chicago's got the puck more tonight as a result, able to do a little bit more with it as well. So Chicago possibly for Alex if it's confirmed that Mrazek.
MDR 24 in the chat. I mean, that's a really good look. Honestly, plus price with Hawks team total over 2.5. Because I mean, obviously they got to get the offense rolling, and 3 goals against Halak. That's not asking too much. So I might actually play that as well. To be honest, that's something I can play regardless of who's in net for the Hawks.
Sounds like the Ian Cameron big underdog special that I did with Montreal the other night, and I'm doing with Montreal tonight. You split it up between the money line and the team total.
I might look at that. Yeah.
Yep, definitely. Definitely an option there for Chicago here in this game tonight. I certainly would take that before the Rangers. That much I know. And I always say that when it's a struggling favorite, I'll always defer to the underdog, at least as a lean. No question about that. All right, Washington, Calgary. We've got Calgary minus 165 home favorite, 6 the total in this one. The Flames, Jimmy's right. I mean, I said they fell flat after the Kachuk Bowl against Florida, where they had that big win against the Panthers and Matthew Tkachuk's return to the Saddle Dome. They were flat in terms of their execution. Their execution wasn't great. They did have a ton of shots at a boatload of chances, but Jake Allen turned them back. So it wasn't like they were totally, asleep for the entire game and were, totally not into the game. They were, but it just, the execution was missing. And sometimes when you aren't as up in a game as you were for a previous game, it's just as much about, your execution being flat as much, if not more, than your emotions and your focus and all the other stuff being flat. That's what I meant. I mean, there's an execution issue more than anything. I mean, the passes weren't clicking. They were just a little off the mark the other night in that game against Montreal. And Jake Allen was terrific in net. That was a big part of the story as well in leading Montreal to that 2-1 victory against Calgary. I definitely could only look at a Calgary team total over or Calgary in regulation here. I'm not ready to trust Washington. Washington, terrible loss for them just based on the fact they started strong against Seattle, 2-0 lead, could not hold it. The Kraken come back, tie it late, and then win it in overtime by a score of 3-2. So a very, very impressive comeback win by Seattle, but unfortunately a very tough loss for the Washington Capitals. They did beat Vancouver to start the road trip, but then we saw what happened for Vancouver right after that against Florida. So I don't know how much credit you want to give Washington for beating the Canucks to start this road trip. They've got Calgary now here, and Calgary too just lost to Washington recently in the nation's capital in D.C. 3-0. Got shut out. I think it's turnaround for the Calgary Flames tonight, a chance to make amends for that. Like I said, they didn't have the finish you wanted against Montreal. I think tonight that can change a little bit and a bounce back type of spot. Dan Vladar, by the way, in net for the Calgary Flames. I think it's the right call by Daryl Sutter. Markstrom cannot be that ridiculous to start that game against Montreal. Whatever possessed him to charge out of the net and get that puck? I mean, it was a risky play, and obviously it didn't work out. But that early in the game, that's something you do if it's late in the third period of the game's time. I mean, it just sets the tone for the whole night. You're chasing the game. You're down 1-0 early. Uri Slafkovsky is the guy that pounced on that puck and put it in with Markstrom scrambling out of the net. Sometimes you have to make those conscious decisions as a goaltender. When do I come out and challenge? When do I, try to get after a loose puck in a spot like that? That was not the time early in the game. And it just shows you the guy's kind of struggling a little bit confidence-wise. And he said it right after the game. He was a lot more harsh about it, saying, I'm playing shitty right now. And so I think this is a mental reset for Jacob Markstrom. Keep in mind, he's played a lot of hockey the last few years, and now he's into his 30s as well from an age perspective. You wonder if it's all catching up to him a little bit, but he needs this little break, I think, Jacob Markstrom right now. And Dan Vladar's serviceable. He's capable. In fact, I would say he's been very good the last couple of times we've seen him in net for the Calgary Flames. He was good against Pittsburgh. He was good against Carolina. He played very well against Florida in that game against the Panthers earlier this week. Dan Vladar is a very capable goaltender here for the Calgary Flames, and especially of late, he's been in decent form. So I'm going to go Flames in regulation here in this one. Alex, what do you think? Capitals, Flames?
Yeah, with a giant car like this is a pass for me. And I understand looking at Flames in regulation, except Vladar, he's still serviceable, but this feels like it could be a back and forth kind of game. They should blow out the Capitals, but we've seen them kind of, lay some eggs, and we've seen the Capitals actually kind of, fight and hang on with a couple of teams that they really shouldn't have on paper. So it's one I want to stay away from.
Stay away for Alex here with the Capitals and the Flames. I'm roaring back to Mangiapane and Dubé. Again, stymied. The whole team was stymied offensively by Montreal the other night. But I said, if they get these guys going, look out. Dubé and Mangiapane, I think, are worth looks in terms of goal scorer prop tonight for Calgary in this game. For Washington, it's mostly, he's actually been one of the better Capitals here of late. As Connor Sheary scored one of the goals the other night against Seattle, playing on the top line, underpriced in my opinion. So that could be the look here for a goal scorer prop in this game tonight. All right, Florida and Seattle. We've got the Panthers minus 115, road favorites, 6 the total in this one. This is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. As far as I'm concerned, I'm on Seattle again. I mean, you could say it wasn't pretty. You could say they didn't play 60 minutes the other night against Washington. Yeah, all they needed was basically 2 or 3 minutes to just turn that game around and win it against the Washington Capitals, and that's all that matters. At the end of the day, this team just finds ways to win. Their offense, the way they've scored goals left and right for the better part of the last couple weeks, is never out of a game right now. They're playing with extreme confidence. They're now up to 15-8 on the season here, the Seattle Kraken. Florida snapped a 3-game losing streak with a 5-1 win against Vancouver. That game looked like it was going to be scoreless going into the first period, and then all of a sudden, bam, 3 goals for Florida, and then Thatcher Demko gets injured, and all the air came out of the balloon at that point for Vancouver, and Florida basically coasted to a win there in that game. Obviously, a much-needed win for the Florida Panthers to get back in the saddle and win that hockey game. But definitely, I got to see more from Florida now going to this red-hot Seattle team that is on a remarkable 12-2 streak in their last 4 games. Just 2 points behind Vegas, by the way, for first place in the Pacific Division. So this all of a sudden becomes a situation where not only is Seattle playing well, the confidence is there. Wenberg is worth a look in terms of props. Beniers has been great. Burakovsky's scoring now for the Kraken. Eberle has been good for the better part of the last month. You got a lot of people making a difference offensively. I think their defensive game has improved a little bit. Obviously, they had that shit show of a game with LA. But overall, I think the blue line's in a little bit better shape and also healthier. Last year, they had a lot of injuries on defense. This year, they got Dunn, Larson, Oleksiak, Schultz. I mean, that top 4 has rarely been healthy and on the ice together the first 2 seasons here in Seattle. They are now Vince Dunn, Adam Larson, Jamie Oleksiak, and Justin Schultz, and you're seeing better performances from them. In net tonight, we don't know. I would be a little bit more leery of Seattle if it's Jones, because Jones, again, has kind of reverted back to old Martin Jones. We don't know if it'll be him or Grubauer yet, but, they've still been able to win games in spite of some recent struggles from Martin Jones. They still beat Anaheim, even though he gave up 4 goals. They beat LA 9-8, even though he gave up 8 goals. They beat San Jose 8-5, even though he gave up 5 goals. So even in these 3 rougher performances in net in a row from Martin Jones, Seattle went 3-0. And still won each of those games. So I'm still going to play Seattle here. Red hot, reasonable price, around even money. Alex, Florida, Seattle.
Yeah, I grabbed them actually plus $1.07 yesterday at Bet Online. So we've seen, the money coming in on them. You can still find some plus prices if you shop around. But even at laying $1.05, that I still like Seattle here. Like I said, been riding them and just going to kind of continue that wave. I think they're a much better team. Florida's just been up and down. We talk about usually, looking to back them when they get hot and ride a streak. They're the kind of team where right now they get a win. You kind of trust them to, probably come back with a loss. If they get a loss, maybe you look to try to see them bounce back. So they've been wildly inconsistent. This is a spot where I'm just riding Seattle right now. Probably going to be on this streak as long as it continues.
Go, Alex, as well, liking the Seattle Kraken as well to continue this great run of play of late. We'll see if it continues here tonight against the Florida Panthers in that game. All right, next up here, we've got the Arizona Coyotes taking on the Vancouver Canucks. We've got Vancouver minus 210, big home favorites here in this one, and the total 6.5. Some 6s and some 6.5s as far as this total is concerned. So make sure you shop around. If you like the over, find a 6. If you like the under, find a 6.5 here in this game. And I like the over in this game. If you look at Arizona, Alex, we've talked about the air miles upon air miles that this team has logged through this ridiculous stretch that the NHL's forced them to go through 1 month on the road while they finish off the dressing room renovations with Mullet Arena before they return home. And Arizona's definitely their defensive play, which was so tight, early on during this road trip, it's coming unglued a bit. That's what I see, especially the last 3. They give up 4 to Detroit, 4 to Minnesota, 5 to LA. I think that's fatigue. When you're tired, when you don't have the physical stamina and the strength you need to be at your best, it shows up defensively. It always does. Your reaction time is slower. You make worse decisions with your puck management, and you just turn over the puck and you just make more mistakes defensively. All of those things happen. And I think we're seeing that the longer this grueling, month-long road trip goes for the Arizona Coyotes. And they're at the just about to make the turn for the home stretch right here, because after this they play in Calgary, and then they play in Edmonton, 2 games in Alberta later this week, and then they finally go back home to play against the Boston Bruins next Friday night. But there is no doubt this team is running on fumes right now, and it's starting to show up in their defensive game in a negative fashion. And I think that is what could be an issue for them here tonight against Vancouver, who did get shut down by Florida in their last game 5-1. But I think this is the night you could see that offense come back to life, explode a bit. 2 straight losses, a tough spot off of a great road trip playing Washington. Ran into a Florida team that was kind of desperate the other night to get a win, and it didn't help that Demko gets injured in tough fashion, and I think the players kind of in a state of shock seeing that happen. They never really were able to rebound. I think Vancouver will play a lot better tonight, and they'll do it offensively, be a lot better tonight in this game. But don't sell Arizona's offense short. I mean, we've seen Arizona, the last few games. They've now scored 3+ goals in 5 consecutive games coming into tonight. They got 3 past Nashville. They had that shocking shutout win against Carolina, 4-0. 3 goals against Detroit, 3 against Minnesota, 3 against LA. The team offensively's picked it up a little bit. It's not like we can trust the Canucks necessarily to shut things down. Spencer Martin been a nice story. No question about that. But the numbers are getting worse for Spencer Martin here. The 2 of the last 4 starts, he's given up 3 goals or more. In fact, actually, if you go back and look for Spencer Martin, he has given up 3 goals or more for the Vancouver Canucks in 6 of his last 8 starts. So he hasn't been nearly as locked down as perhaps he was in net early in the season. So I like this total over 6 here with Arizona and Vancouver. Alex, Coyotes, Canucks.
Yeah, I like the over in the first period. I got 1.5, laying 140, and I also like this full game over 6. Like you said, the fatigue's going to start setting in with Arizona, and they haven't been that team to give up a lot of goals early lately. I think that's going to start to shift over time as well. And of course, what team to do it better than against one of the best teams in the first period over the Vancouver Canucks. So I never think we see goals early and often here. I'll take the over for first period and full game.
All right, there we go. First period over and full game. As far as the prop market goes, I stand by the same 2 guys that I've mentioned over and over again with Vancouver, Mikheyev and Kuzmenko, I think, for goal scorer props in terms of the Canucks. I'd go with Nick Schmaltz again for Arizona. This guy seems to be making an impact most nights. His return, it's not a coincidence that Arizona started to be a little bit better offensively the last few games. It's kind of coincided with Nick Schmaltz's return from injury. He's definitely made a difference for Arizona, made them a little bit of a better offensive team, and we have seen it play out that way here in recent games, and I think you could see that once again, him make an impact here for the Arizona Coyotes tonight against the Vancouver Canucks. All right, final game. We have reached the end of the card. It is a massive one. I think we're just over an hour into the show, and we've gotten through all 13 games. Not bad at all from a time perspective. Carolina Hurricanes, Los Angeles Kings. We've got the Canes minus 125 road favorites here. 6 the total in this game. I mean, at this point with the LA Kings, we have seen a very alarming and disturbing body of work with their defensive play lately, to the point where at this point it's like, why fight it? Embrace what we're seeing from the Kings. They've got issues defensively. And I just so happened to hear, I think it was on the other show you do, Alex. I just happened to have it on. Stuff in the background. I'm usually got other sports betting shows or something on. It was Edge Work. And it was one of the days Dennis Bernstein was on. He's very good in terms of knowing the LA Kings.
Right.
He's out there in California. He follows that team well. He said some things that made a lot of sense. And he said it. LA's an over team right now. Their defensive confidence is shot right now. They've got guys playing a little out of position on the blue line. Right-handed shooting defensemen playing left-handed and vice versa. Like, it's just that there's guys that are not fit for the positions they're playing on the blue line right now on this Kings team, and it's really impacted them in a negative light in terms of their defensive game. Not only that, but obviously the goaltending has fallen down in a big way for LA. Jonathan Quick is struggling. Cal Peterson, it got so bad for him, they put him on waivers earlier this week. So, if it ain't, don't fight it at this point. LA has serious confidence issues defending in their own zone right now. It's clear as day. The goaltending hasn't been great. I like over the total here, Carolina, LA. I'm going to go with that. Nothing on the side. I mean, I certainly would probably lean with Carolina in this game. They've won 3 in a row. They're in better form. I'm waiting to see who's going to be in net for them tonight. I'm always a little bit more. If it's Ronta, I really like the over. If it's Pyotr Kochetkov, I'll probably still bet the over, but I might add Carolina too, because that could be potentially
Yeah.
a big-time goaltending advantage in favor of Carolina. And certainly, Carolina has been up and down, but now they've put 3 wins in a row together, coming into this game against LA, beating Calgary, beating Pittsburgh, beating St. Louis. They're all pretty solid teams they beat as well. All of them up and flawed because, like I say, outside of Boston, New Jersey, and Vegas, and even Vegas has lost a few, but especially Boston and New Jersey, it seems like everyone's gone through a losing skid at some point. But I definitely lean Carolina. I'll pull the trigger on Carolina if we get Pyotr Kochetkov in net. And regardless, I think we see goals tonight. I like over the total with this one. LA just, they've totally lost all their confidence in their own zone defending, really ever since that Edmonton game. They haven't played a good defensive game since that Edmonton game when they put up a Picasso, a Rembrandt, a masterpiece against Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl that night. And ever since then, it's been just a disastrous turn of events for LA in their own defensive zone. What do you think here, Alex? The nightcap, Carolina, LA.
Yeah, I like Carolina here in regulation. I'm seeing anywhere between plus 115 to plus 125. I think this is a good spot for them. And like I said, I like the over in both scenarios for Carolina and goal, but of course we like it more with Ronta. But keep this in mind with this kind of 1-2 tandem that Kochetkov could really possibly, if Anderson comes back, right? Kochetkov not only had the chance to take Ronta's spot, he had the chance to possibly take the overall number 1 spot, even when Anderson does come back. So with that being said, Ronta's got to really string together some good starts whenever he does get a chance in net, because his job could possibly be in question. I would not be stunned at all if we were to see him or Anderson possibly get
to the
dealt.
Charlotte Checkers. Yeah.
Yeah, well, or dealt somewhere else out of the organization in due time, because Kochetkov has really emerged as a true talent. I mean, he's still young, he's still raw, but I think he deserves a spot long term with this club right now. So that's something to keep in mind when you do see Ronta confirmed with some starts. He's got to really play some of his best hockey, in my opinion, and that's going to determine his fate and future moving down the line. But with this game, Carolina's won 6 of the last 7 meetings against LA. He said the Kings are just in poor defensive form right now. Overs make sense. I would definitely go over 6 as well, but I like Carolina in regulation a little bit more than that.
A lean to the over, but liking Carolina in regulation here for a little bit more bang for your buck here, backing the Hurricanes in this one rather than laying the $1.25 with them here on the money line. Yeah, you can get Carolina in regulation here in this game as high as plus 125. So nice price there if you like the Hurricanes in regulation. But yeah, I mean, LA is just, they've got some issues, right? You know what's disappointing too about LA, about the defensive woes lately? Everybody's healthy. That's the most disappointing part. This is, I mean, it's not like they've got 3 starting defensemen out like some teams like Columbus or Toronto and Toronto's been able to cope, with 3 starting defensemen out. What's LA's excuse? They've got everybody healthy. Doughty's been back for a while, although he's actually been victimized more than a few times defensively during this stretch. Mikey Anderson, Roy's back. Edler is, Edler looks, you can beat him with speed, unfortunately. He's in his twilight of his career now. You can definitely see the wear and tear on him. He's slowing down quite a bit. I like Dursey offensively as a defenseman, but he still can be really, really suspect at times in his own end. So, yeah, it's just disappointing. They've got everybody on that blue line, and yet they have been the collective nightmare for the large part in the last few weeks in their own zone defensively. So we'll see if LA can turn that around, but it's been a rough 2 weeks in that regard. All right, great stuff from Alex B. Smith. Oh, by the way, props in that Carolina-LA game. Marty Natchez is always going to be brought up by me. No question about that. I mean, he just seems to make an impact every single night. I mean, 2 goals in the last 3 games for the Hurricanes. I still think, even though he's gone goalless the last 3, Steph Nason is a little bit undervalued as well on the Carolina side of things. For LA, they're still capable to score goals. We've seen that this week, even though the defense has come unglued. I would sprinkle it around between, Trevor Moore, Kaliev, Grunstrom. He's even stepped up a little bit lately offensively for them. So there's some undervalued prop looks. Velarde's always a threat, but again, you're just not getting the price with him to score that you did earlier in the season. All right, great stuff for this Saturday card. Awesome, breaking down a big Saturday slate. 170 live viewers on YouTube. Hit the like button. Make sure you do that. We appreciate it very much. It helps us out, no question about that. So hit that like button. Reminder, patreon.com/Ice Guys, just $10 a month. Our daily Ice Guys betting card posted there. Power ratings, goalie charts, totals charts, and more. Lots of bonus content to come the rest of the season as well, and especially in the new year. So check that out, patreon.com/Ice Guys, just $10 a month.
Yeah, check out Ice Guys store, iceguys.myspreadshop.com. There's only 2 days left to get 15% off everything in the store and free standard shipping. You do not want to get shut out for the holiday season. You know how it's tricky getting packages delivered this time of year. So get everything covered right now at the Ice Guys store. That's iceguys.myspreadshop.com.
Definitely. All right. Good stuff. Let's go to best bets here to wrap up this edition of the Ice Guys. We're up in the air with what we're doing tomorrow in the show. It'll either be live or pre-recorded, but it's going to be earlier than normal. But either way, you will have something from a Sunday Ice Guys show standpoint posted on the YouTube channel tomorrow. So stay tuned for that, and we won't leave you hanging. We will still be here to break down the 5 games on the Sunday slate. All right, best bets for this massive monster Saturday card. Alex, what do you like for best bet?
Yeah, it's a bit of a rivalry showdown with the Devils and Flyers. Too close in proximity. The teams and fan bases don't care for each other that much, but I think it's going to be a good pace, at least early in the first 20 minutes, and we're getting a great price, laying just $1.25 with that first period over 1.5. We've seen the Flyers 6-1 the last 7 of the first period over. In the last 11 meetings between these two teams, 7-4. So let's go Flyers Devils first period over 1.5 minus $1.25. My best bet for this Saturday.
All right, there you go. Flyers Devils over 1.5 in the first period. Best bet for Alex P. Smith. My best bet for this Saturday card. Oh, there's lots to choose from. I'm gonna. You know what? I can't believe. When is the last time the Toronto Maple Leafs have been a best bet for me? I can't even remember. I just got this real sense, especially being close to the area. There's a great focus with this group tonight. Mitch Marner's going for the franchise point record, the consecutive game point streak franchise record tonight. Facing Tampa Bay for the first time since that heartbreaking Game 7. They left it all out on the ice. They lost 2-1 in that game. I think Toronto's really bringing it tonight. And to be honest with you, I've loved this team's effort, performance, focus defensively, coming together, playing as a group, playing as a unit ever since they had the defensemen go down to injury, including Brody and Riley. I've been impressed, and they're getting a nice little underdog price here in this game. I think Toronto's got the capability to get it done. Down in Tampa, the Leafs, a rare Leaf best bet for me. Toronto plus 115 against the Tampa Bay Lightning for my best bet here for this Saturday card. And that'll wrap up this edition of the Ice Guys. Thanks to everyone in the chat for joining us. Hit the like button on the way out. And a reminder, the Ice Guys is live 7 days a week, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, Saturday and Sunday, noon Eastern. If you can't watch the show live, download the Ice Guys podcast in audio form on all major podcast platforms: Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and more. Download the Ice Guys podcast when you can't watch the show live. For Alex P. Smith, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Saturday. Enjoy the games and good luck. We will talk to you again tomorrow on Sunday for another edition of the Ice Guys presented by National Hockey Now.